If you're looking for the most amazing podcast ever, well, this isn't it. You're listening to the Average Fellas Podcast, guaranteed to let you down and leave you unsatisfied.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm your host, Zodizach, coming to you live all the way from Riverside, California on a lovely October 26th. It's a beautiful Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen. Man, I love the fall weather. I love it. I love the fall weather. Awesome guests that I have on today's show. Before I bring on the guests, guys, let me just shout you guys out. The listeners, the downloaders, the likers, those of you guys who are participating. I just want to say thank you so much. Those of you guys that like and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all those things. Thank you so much. Once again, this podcast is to promote small businesses, nonprofits, freelancers, anybody who is an average fella who's doing something extraordinary. I want to highlight their life. That's what we want to do here on this podcast. So once again, thank you guys so much for listening, downloading, liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing, all those things, because it takes your guys' efforts, your guys' participation with this show, to help those people, the average fellas that come on the show. You know what I'm saying? I really want to highlight their business, their dream, their voice. And once again, I just want to say thank you guys for liking, subscribing, all those things. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my guests because you guys are participating. Anyways, all right. Now that I've done all those things, I want to bring on my guest. My guest this morning is a longtime friend of mine. Good friend of mine. We go way back. As a matter of fact, we actually used to be a beer pong team. Like, we were beer pong teammates back in the early days. And we actually had an intro. We actually had music that we would play before we would actually start our game. It was a ritual that we had. So anyways, without any further ado, I'd like to bring my guest today, my friend and bro, Tony G, also Tesla's finest. What's going on, Tony? How are you today?
What's up? How's it going?
Not bad, man.
Great intro.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate you jumping on the show and jumping on the call with me. This is gonna be a fun episode because I think, honestly, bro, you are the epitome of what the average fellas means. The idea that you went to Tesla and what you're doing there is amazing, bro. It's honestly great. Bro, it's amazing. So I just want to say,
man.
I just want to tip my hat to you, say thank you for being an example to the average fella. You know what I'm saying? What you're doing at Tesla is, who would have ever thought a boy from Los Banos is doing what he's doing at Tesla, man? That's awesome, man. I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you. As a bro, I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great place to work. And you know my background. I graduated high school. I had a kid shortly after, and then I got grinding. And I just started working, had an opportunity to get a job at Tesla, took it, ran with it. And that company really, it shows that if you work hard and bust your ass and just do the best you can, they'll treat you right. Because I've been there for 6 years now, in I think next month. And I really like working there. I don't plan on leaving, riding it till the wheels fall off. And those first few years, no one knew what was going to happen. So it's been exciting and well worth it.
Well, speaking about Tesla, give me a brief overview of what you started at, what you started doing at Tesla, and then what you're doing now.
So when I started, I actually applied. I went to a job fair in the Fremont factory, Fremont, California, in the Bay Area. And there was hundreds of people. I showed up an hour early and they were already filled for the day.
That's exactly how it feels today.
I got turned around at the gate, and I just saw a bunch of reps. They were telling people to basically go home, and they were collecting resumes. I had like a stack of 10. I went to 10 different people and just gave them all my resume.
Wow.
And after that, didn't hear anything for a few weeks. Just kept working, and eventually they called me like 3 months later. Went in, had an interview, and got hired as a production associate. And
Let me highlight something real quick. You said you gave out 10 resumes to the same business, to Tesla.
Yeah.
3 different reps for 10 different reps for Tesla. You gave them each your resume.
I walked up and down the gates looking for people collecting resumes and just handed each and every one out.
Wow, dude. Those of you guys out there, if you're out there looking for a job just like me, I'm on Indeed. I'm on every single job app possible right now. I mean, hear that. Listen to that. That's a nugget of gold right there, okay? Thank you for sharing that, Tony. Okay, so you were saying you farmed out your resume to 10 different reps at Tesla. You didn't hear from them for a couple weeks, and then
I didn't hear from them. After a few weeks, I gave up. I was like, maybe next time. And a few months later, like it was like 3 or 4 months later, they called me, had an interview for production associate, and that's where I started working on the line.
Working on the line, man.
Building the new motors.
So you were actually in the automotive part of the factory at that point.
Yep, exactly.
And what models were you working on at that point?
I was working on the new drive unit for the Model X. When they came out with the dual motor vehicle, those were the motors I was building.
Wow.
So the S and X, yeah.
Okay, and so that was in Fremont, though, right?
Correct. That was in Fremont. I worked there for a year.
Wow. It's so that was in Fremont. So I now I know we had a chance to hang out and catch up a couple days ago. What exactly is it that you're working on now? Because I know you were doing some like
so from there, from the Fremont factory, they announced the Gigafactory in Nevada, and it was interesting. It was new. It was just away from the Bay Area where it was cheaper and less people, and it seemed like a cool opportunity. So I applied and got the job, and I became one of the first crews to go out there and start production. And from there, I actually switched to the Tesla energy department, and we built the first power packs and stationary storage that we built production wise.
wow.
And yeah, that was excellent. And then from there, the Gigafactory expanded, and I went to the drive units for the Model 3 cars that are currently out and the Model Y. And after that, I went to the drive units. Yeah, I went to the drive units for the Model 3, and then I went to a totally different out of production position. So now what I'm currently doing and have been for the past, 8 months, I'm a manufacturing engineering technician. So now I'm installing the lines and upgrading the lines and adding the new equipment in.
So
It's pretty fun.
So when you talk about upgrading the lines and stuff, so basically what you're saying is like you are one of the people, one of the personnel that's on the team that's actually building the manufacturing line, installing the robots,
Correct.
making sure that these certain processes are made known before the next, the fresh pair of hands who is the operator, right? Who is an operator who just mans that one tool. That's it. That's awesome, man. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. So today's episode, eventually we're going to get into is building a computer, really, because I want to pick your brain about that. I got a budget for a computer, and I'm on the market I don't want to sink, $2,000 into a computer if I can build it for less than $1,000. You know what I'm saying? So I want to hear people's experiences and expertise on that, so that way I can get a better understanding and make a better decision myself, really. And that's kind of what this podcast is for, obviously. But prior to building your computer, did you have any experience with like electronic components or computer components? Or even building electronical, things?
Not really. Like, I never took any classes. I've always been interested in computers since I was a kid. But I've never really tinkered with electronics until recently. There's just a lot to electronics I didn't understand. But about a year ago, I finally had the time and the money and the I guess, motivation to build a computer, so I did.
What I guess what I want to say is, um, so getting into the position that you have now, building the computer, did that happen prior to the position that you have now? Like, you are actually installing fully functional robots for the Tesla manufacturing line today, like right now. That's part of your job, right?
Yeah, small part, but yes.
This a small part of it, right? So leading into that, like obviously we're going to get into talking about building a computer. So would you say that maybe your experience or that introduction into building a computer maybe had opened your eyes to the world of, computer components, electronic components, and like how these pieces of hardware work together and function?
Yeah, so it was actually the other way around. Working at Tesla, I've learned like just a totally different way of thinking about how things are made and how stuff is manufactured, and it learning how to work on electrical cabinets and running wire and building mechanical devices and running pneumatics and all that stuff. It gave me the confidence to be like, I pretty sure I can build a computer if I can do all this other stuff.
Wow.
All I gotta do is learn about it and take it one step at a time. And I think almost anybody can build a computer if you just do a little bit of research.
Just a little bit of research. Speaking of research, this next question, for people considering building their own computer, what are some free resources they can find helpful that you used? I'm sure like you Googled or YouTubed some things.
Yeah, exactly. So I did a lot of YouTube research. The first thing I did was, what are the major components of a computer, and watched a couple of videos on that. But when it came to building the computer, there's a website called pcpartpicker.com, and you basically have a blank slate, and it shows you all the different major components that you could use to build your computer, and you start picking each component, and every time you add something, the next thing you add, it only shows you components that are compatible with the components on your list already.
Oh wow, that's
So it's
awesome.
very convenient for making sure you have everything that works together.
Wow, that is that's definitely useful. Is this PC Part Picker you said .com?
Yeah, pcpartpicker.com. And that's something I didn't even consider when I first started.
Wow.
Like, components not working.
Yeah,
Thought it was
exactly.
just plug and play.
There you go. So, I mean, speaking of like plug and play, right? So, I know. So, I have a rudimentary understanding of all the functioning parts, the hardware for the computer. I have a rudimentary understanding of the necessary software that I need in order to run a computer. But if I wanted to actually build a computer today, where would you suggest that I start?
So how I started was actually I don't even know if it's the right type of way to start, but I bought a case. I found a case that looked cool. Well, here's what I did. I decided I want to buy a computer and build it. So I don't have a lot of money, but I don't mind waiting. So I went on newegg.com, which is a popular computer parts website, and Best Buy, and I was just looking for deals for parts I needed. And it all just started with the case. But you should really consider your budget first. Some people say half your budget should be your graphics card, and the other half is everything else. So for you mentioned you had up to maybe $1,000 or $1,000. If you can get a $2,000 PC for $1,000, that's a way better option. And a $500 graphics card can get you a really good PC.
Well, but that's just one component, though, in the list of pieces of hardware that you actually need to build your computer, right? A graphics card.
Yeah, exactly. So you need the motherboard, the CPU, the RAM, and the hard drive.
Well,
those are the major components.
Okay, so that was actually my next. That was actually my next question. My next question says, speaking of building a computer, can you identify some key components to a computer build?
Yeah. So, um, exactly. So the motherboard, CPU, graphics card, and RAM, and the hard drive or solid state drive. Those are the main components. Motherboard make basically communicates, makes all the other components communicate with each other. The central processing unit or the CPU or processor, that's the brains of the computer. Like the code that Windows runs off of sends commands to the processor that decodes all the information and tells all your other components what to do. And the graphics card makes your graphics. So, like, if your monitor's not high end, there's no point in getting a high end graphics card kind of situation. But or if you're doing like 3D design, you'll probably want a stronger graphics card.
Right. Well, I mean, so speaking about hardware, so this is the problem that I'm running into. So I don't have any expertise in actually building a computer. I just know pieces. I worked at Western Digital. We built hard disk drives. So it was actually a disk inside of a drive that would spin. Wasn't a solid state. A little bit different technology, not flash drive technology. It's older technology, but still reliable. That's why they're still in business to this day. But so I know that there are components to your computer that, they do there's certain functions that carry out your hard drive stores, it's a storage bank. It's there to store files. It's there to store, code. It's there just to dump things and save it. Right. Everything from videos, pictures, everything you want to say, just any kind of data you store it on that drive. Right. So, speaking about, hardware, can you talk about the relation between hardware components? You talked about graphics cards, so I want to talk about specs maybe and functionality between software and hardware as far like when it comes to like graphics cards, CPUs, because here's the big old thing. Here's the thing is like whoever's building a computer, you're building it for a reason, a tool maybe, right? So I'm a podcaster and I want to build a computer that can process video and audio, data. So,
Gotcha. Yeah.
Can you talk maybe kind of like run us through that? Maybe your experience and understanding and sort of like, I guess, yeah.
So yeah, what a high end component would do for what kind of job you're trying to get done, right?
Exactly.
So for when it comes to the motherboard, the more you want to do, the better the motherboard you would need. Basically, the better higher end motherboards have more graphics card slots or more pin readouts for more fans and more lights or more RAM slots. So that's kind of the range for that. It just depends on what you're doing, and it could be anything. Just it doesn't matter. It could be audio, video. Just if you need more stuff plugged in, more cameras, more this, more that, you'll need a bigger motherboard with more, accessibility.
Wow.
For the CPUs, the processors, most video games, you don't really need a high-end processor. Like the mid-range i5 or Ryzen 5 processors will be just fine for any high-end game that you want to play. Where the higher and bigger the CPUs come into play is when you're doing video editing and 3D modeling or any high processing software like that.
Right. So, but what we mean by high processing is something that is literally having to crunch data because if you think about video, there's every pixel's coded for a color. Every color's coded for a certain amount of time in a certain frame, at a certain point in space, right? So all that is coded a certain way for your CPU to sort of, crunch all those zeros and ones to interpret what exactly the output should be, right? And so when you talk about, you talk about your CPU, and you talk about graphics cards. Can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe talk about how the relation between those, if maybe a little bit more in depth. So if someone was wanted to do video editing, maybe what are some of the things that would benefit them when they go to purchase a computer? What are some of the key component like hardware? What are some of the key hardware components that you would say spend the money on if you were a video editor?
Okay, so um, a CPU that can handle a lot of data. You know, again, i5, i7s are fine as well. But when it comes to probably the most important is the RAM. A lot of RAM because all the RAM is your temporary local data that the processor needs to feed from. So if you've been probably, I don't know if you've had experience with video editing, but if you're editing a big file and you're trying to go to a different section or whatnot or add effects or whatever, it can lag or
Yeah.
take a really long time to get to the next page. With a lot of RAM, all that data is right there for it to access rapidly. And you know how it's a long card, and that whole card is a bunch of pins. I forget the amount of pins, but versus like your hard drive where it's like, I don't know, 8 pins. The RAM is 29 pins or whatever it may be. So it's a lot more data can be processed faster. So if you have more RAM, it has access to be processed basically.
So it's sort of, I guess, maybe another analogy. I just want to add on to that and highlight it, right? So for the listeners, so basically, I think I guess readily available energy, and then your hard drive is like your stored energy, right? So
Exactly.
So your RAM would be considered like what you can, if you like to work out, if you're into fitness, what can you use right now? What can you do right now? Explosive kinetic energy right now that is readily available for you to lift your weights, run your mile. And then there's stored energy, which is like fat, which is like the hard drive, you know what I'm saying? The solid state drive in the back is holding on to it,
Exactly.
Cool. So can you talk about your first time powering up your DIY computer? I'm sure this was probably a stressful moment for you.
Dude, it was interesting. I was confident. I was pretty confident building it because I watched a lot of videos. I was super careful. It took me like 4 hours to put it all together because I was just like rewatching stuff and looking at the manuals and putting it all together. So I plugged it in. I was so excited. Hooked everything up, made sure it was all hooked up. Pressed the power button. Boom, lights come on. Fans are spinning. Nothing on the screen.
No.
I was like, no, what's happening? Oh no. And I ended up just unplugging some stuff. I made sure everything was. I didn't unplug anything immediately, but I made sure everything was plugged in right. And then I noticed on the graphics card there was an option for there's 6-pin plug, which is what I had and thought I needed, and then there's an 8-pin plug, and I needed the 8-pin plug. So I eventually figured that out, plugged it in, turned it back on, and boom, Windows popped up for installation.
So, okay. So, maybe walk through that part real quick. So you actually built a PC, right? So you built and you built it on the Windows, platform, right?
Exactly. That's the operating system.
Right. So, maybe you can talk about that. Talk about operating system. Talk about, why did you choose Windows over maybe Linux or even going the OS route where you have to buy the entire computer?
Yeah. So I went for Windows just because I was familiar with it. I used it at work. It's only $100 for the license forever, and it was a pretty simple process. You just buy it, install it onto a USB drive, and then when it's plugged in, there's on most motherboards nowadays they have a a specific USB port in the back that will check for an operating system install as it boots up. And
Wow.
that's how you just turn on the computer and it knows to look for that to load. And that's how it all started.
So from the manufacturer, what actual motherboard company did you go with?
Um, it's MSI, pretty popular. I
Yeah.
got the higher end budget board when I first started, the Tomahawk. Um, and then more recently upgraded to I forget what it's called, but I upgraded to the high end MSI board just because of certain reasons, I guess. I don't know.
So
I just wanted to upgrade.
can you talk about maybe some of the benefits for building your computer as far as like upgrading your computer? Because I think today, now more than ever, for me, a computer is an investment, kind of like a car. You know, like I need my
Yeah,
computer to do functions that will, maybe, eventually make me money, hopefully. But I need my computer to obviously do word processing. I need it to have enough storage for all my family videos and all that kind of stuff like that. So,
exactly.
um,
So the benefit of starting small when I built my computer with the basically cheapest components I can find on sale over the course of a couple months is I knew I could always just upgrade down the line, which is something I actually needed to do at one point because I started streaming recently and running the encoder and a video game, or I used to play two video games at once, like one that's just like a click and wait game while I'm playing a
yeah.
first person shooter. It started making my processor overheat and it actually shut down my
Oh,
computer.
wow.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I know it's a dumb reason to upgrade, but I was like, I might as well. And I had a little bit of spare cash, found a processor that was on sale, so I was like, let's upgrade it. And I did, and it's definitely worth it. And you can do that with all of the components as you need to. And the good thing about the other components is I actually have enough spare components now to build another computer.
Wow. Are you going to do that?
I was thinking about it, yeah.
Do a YouTube
I might
build, man.
have YouTube builds.
YouTube
I might
build.
I might teach Max how to build a computer that way.
Honestly, I was thinking the same thing. When I have kids, like if I learn once I learn to build a computer, I'm seriously considering teaching my children the value of a computer. Because in
Yeah,
today's society, in the future, learning how computers work is going to be necessary. For me, I think so.
of course, yeah.
I mean,
I mean, it
I
seems
mean,
that way.
exactly. Like, look at automation. Like, burger flippers are a thing. They're robots that flip your burgers for you now. You put the mayo on it,
It's
slap the
coming.
bun. It's coming. So unless you know how to program that robot, unless you know how all the components, or even have a rudimentary understanding of the components that are necessary for you to maybe even use a robot,
Yep.
it's valuable information. And in tomorrow's society, that's why I want to talk about. I mean, this is an important episode to me. You work for Tesla. I feel like Tesla has that very future thought. Like they look to the future, they innovate for the future, right? And that's one thing,
Exactly.
that's one thing about computers that I've always loved, especially being a kid. Like, for me, computers were like taboos growing up. It was just like, we didn't have a computer until I was like 12 years old. And when we did have a computer, you didn't touch it because you didn't know how to use it. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So for
And,
me,
and it cut off the phone line if you wanted to go on the internet.
yeah, exactly, man. So it was very limited to what you could do. And the time that you did spend on the computer was like, oh my God, I better figure it out now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I felt the same way.
But, so like I said, like, you talk about, teaching it to Max, teaching him the computer parts and stuff. I think it's very valuable, man. Like, I want to teach my kids that. I want to teach them what computer can do, what the pieces are. It's like a car, people value their car,
Exactly.
but I will tell you this, you can make a whole lot more money on your computer than you could do on a car. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So for people that are thinking about buying a computer, What is a good price for a consumer computer to buy, and maybe a custom computer? Like what is the difference in value there? Can you talk about the price point, perhaps?
Yeah, almost like you said, how you could you would want to get the most value if you could build a computer for $1,000 that you could buy for a pre-built one for 2,000. That's almost what it is. Um, Kind of that rate. Um, just the labor itself is um, part of the price right there in the pre-built computers. Like I did, you can get stuff on sale over time when the price is right for you, and just build it when you have all the components together. Um, I even bought my first graphics card on eBay. That was the biggest saver right there. I bought it for $50 and it was like a $250 graphics card.
Wow.
So you can't do that with a commercial one. So um, commercial, if you're in a hurry or don't want to put in the time to build it, then there are some good value commercial pre-built. You should probably look on look for a specialty company who does that, not like a Best Buy one or a Walmart pre-built computer, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
So okay, but talk about that Walmart computer. Talk about that Best Buy computer. What is what would you say? So the person who maybe they're gonna go, I'm gonna go spend $1,000 on a computer right now, right? Let's just say random person, right? I'm gonna go spend $1,000 on a computer right now. From your position, from your experience building your computers, would you warn people who are going to go buy a consumer computer and be like, no, just build it, don't waste your money? Is it like that sort of sentiment, or is it like, yeah, if you need it, go for it?
Yeah, it's more if you need it, go for it. Because some people, it depends on if like my mom was trying to build a gaming computer. I don't know, to just Skype with the family and play HD solitaire or something. Um, I would just say, yeah, just buy a consumer one. $300, you can do all that.
Laptop or something, yeah.
But if my cousin who is more technical and you know is good with his hands for work, or whatever he may be doing, I would tell him, hey, just build it. You'll get a more bang for your buck. That's all it comes down to. If you
Really?
put in the work, you'll get more bang for your buck. And if you're technical enough to do it, I recommend you doing it. And like I said, it's easy to become technical enough by watching videos on the YouTubes.
On the tubes of Ubes, for sure. So what can you talk about maybe talk about the person who is looking to buy a computer that maybe they want to do the Apple, but you've built a PC. Is there any do you have any comments towards that? Like the person who favors the Mac platform over the Apple platform over the PC platform?
No. I understand why people choose Mac. It's super streamlined, so easy to use, very powerful, looks sexy,
Yeah.
and can't hate on that. So it's just basically for me, it's like taste and
Familiarity.
maybe, yeah, familiarity with what you've grown to know and use.
Well, and I agree with that too, because I've used both platforms, Mac and PC, and I feel like for me, Mac, I can get a lot of work done on, like especially creative work. It just like, I feel like the interfacing and like I don't want to say ergonomics, but like how the platform works to me seems it's an extension of myself. I just kind of know it.
Yeah.
I just know the platform without ever even using a certain program on it. I just it falls into place. Like I kind of know it. Where when I started working on PC, using PC, it became a little more technical. I had to sort of up my game and my understanding of drivers, software, software compatibility, hardware
Yeah.
compatibility, a little bit more in-depth knowledge of computers in general. So, so I guess for me, PC is the way to go if you need a workhorse. Like if you need literally a computer that you're going to abuse, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you get the PC. But if
Yeah.
there's a computer that you love and that you're like, this is my child, and creative bliss, go with the Mac. Just a little bit different workflow for me, at least as a content creator. Can you talk about maybe some of the softwares that you use for PC that need to be highlighted, especially for people who are building computers? You talked about using Windows OS. Can you talk about other softwares that you needed that you weren't aware of until you had to build your computer?
For getting it started and set up, all you really need is the Windows operating system installed. But there's a couple of programs specifically for the graphics card and for the CPU and the motherboard that kind of basically all-in-one monitoring software for your computer. And it's if you look up the graphic card or processor that you have, and you look for like dashboard, MSI motherboard dashboard, and you can find a software that lets you look at all the settings and kind of see how everything's running in real time, run tests.
It
Other
helps
than
you
that, software,
optimize the cohesion between those pieces of hardware, right?
exactly. And there's also software for like running all your lights and like tuning the colors. Like my PC has a bunch of RGB, lights that makes it look all fancy and pretty.
You have to send me a picture, man, so I could use it in the background on our Instagram for our Instagram
Yeah.
for this when we do the little Instagram snippet for this.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about Tesla. I want to talk to you about maybe some of your experience building your computer and working at Tesla. You said that Tesla really sort of helped you think differently, and it was through that job experience that sort of helped you gain some knowledge that opened the door to encouraging you to build your own computer. So after building a computer, working at Tesla for a while, can you talk about maybe some of the practical experience that came from building your computer, and then how did that work translate to going back to work, helping you back at work with that understanding of building your computer?
It's just such a different skill set building the computer, and it's just what I do day to day. It did get me through some conversations with some engineers who also have built their own PCs, and it's fun to talk about and nerd out about computer building, especially with
Engineering.
one of the new graphics cards that came out from MSI, or no, I don't know who made it. NVIDIA. Yeah, they just came out with the new series. But it's fun. I'm able to help others build PCs and get into the hobby, and that's always a nice thing.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to build one for my girlfriend tonight.
Hey, are you going to be streaming that?
I don't think so. I might. I don't know. Maybe I will.
Speaking about streaming, I heard you mentioned that you started streaming a little bit. So, like, can you maybe give us a little teaser of that content? What exactly are you streaming? What do you get into? Like, what got you into streaming?
So, our friend Tom,
Yeah.
Ducker, it's that Ducker. I just when I built my PC, I started hanging out with you guys online more, and he has been streaming on Twitch for a little bit, so I started watching him and all of his friends, and I became friends with them, and it's just a fun way to hang out.
A community.
And And I am horrible at video games. I'm not horrible, but I'm not good at shooters, or I'm nowhere near professional level at any of that stuff. I just don't have time. So I'm taking a little bit different route, and I'm gonna be doing a bunch of nerdy stuff. I paint D&D miniatures, most of them that I've 3D printed. So there's some 3D printing action, and
Wow.
um, I'll play some. I'll also play video games, but more just for fun, casual, and some sort of electronics. I actually replaced the shell of a Joy-Con controller, which is actually not that easy. I thought it was going to be a lot
Wow.
easier, but getting deep, I took the entire thing apart, and there's a lot of little tiny components that I may or may not have messed up along the way. But stuff like that, just doing painting, electronics, 3D printing, and
That's
a little
cool,
bit of
man.
video games.
That's awesome. I really like that. That's cool. I like the little I did watch a little bit of your stream today. You were painting something. It looked like a demon. It definitely was a D&D figure, or like, yes, that's exactly what you were
Yeah,
painting.
it was a demon.
Oh my
It was
God.
actually it's Balrog from Lord of the Rings.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really awesome. You talked about 3D printing right now. So, building your PC, I know I talked to you about this before. You said that you have a 3D printer that's not necessarily just a plug and play. Like you ordered it, it came in pieces, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's called the Ender 3 Pro. It is it's a 3D printer that uses plastic filament, just a little wire, a filament in a spool that you feed into the extruder of the 3D printer, and it heats up, and you load a file that's called G code, and it's just a sort of code that the printer runs off of XYZ axis, and it heats up, and the printer moves along in the XYZ axis layer by layer, printing out whatever you tell it to.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So, can you maybe talk about some of the things that you've printed before on that?
Printed some dice towers, which is um, basically like a tube that you dump dice into, and it comes out at the bottom to reveal your roll. The demon you saw me paint. I printed a replica of the Disneyland castle,
Oh wow,
which was pretty cool. It was like almost the size of my head.
that's pretty precise. Almost the size of my head. I literally am watching you and just looking at your head, thinking that's a pretty big castle.
Yeah, it was pretty big. Um, Let me see if I can show you. I printed this headset stand,
Oh wow, cool.
and a lot of upgrades actually for my printer itself. So like a cable chain, drag chain, so it just runs along the wires to keep them neat. A couple knobs. I printed what was it? I printed something from my roommate. He needed like a clip made, and I printed that for him.
Wow.
So actually during the pandemic, I printed about 60 face mask holders for
Wow.
the face shields,
Yeah.
and we donated them, and we actually got a letter from the governor
Wow.
saying thanks. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm using that for the Instagram clip. That's going for the Instagram clip. Oh my gosh, that's awesome, man. So for me, like I'm one of these kind of people where like I think of 3D printing, I think of the future. You know what I'm saying? Like I Kanye West it to the future when I think of 3D printing. I'm like, oh my God, the future is 3D printing. And you know, you can Google it right now. You can YouTube right now, 3D printing manufacturing. And there is some guy somewhere in a warehouse who has 300 Amazon 3D printers, and he's printing out whatever you want to, whatever you want. You want to print out, you know,
Whatever you
paper
want.
clips or little, you know, balloon holders or something. You just dial his number. He'll print you out 1,000 of them, you know? And so for me, you know, these sorts of skills, we're talking about building your computer. You know, you have a 3D printer that you assembled yourself, right?
Yep.
You
Completely.
learn,
Yep.
I mean, the software that you need to even create something three-dimensional for your 3D printing, like these are all things that are very useful for tomorrow's society, that I think that people don't understand the value in understanding these concepts and building your own computer, learning how to have a 3D print, using a 3D print. Our children are going to take advantage of 3D printing.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they're not going to go.
Huge.
They're not going to go buy a pitcher to put their Kool-Aid in. They're going to print one out right in front of them. Like, oh, we need a salad bowl. We're not going to go buy it. Let's just print one out. You know. So this is the kind of things I'm talking about. Like when I talk about future and I talk about like very valuable skill sets, building a computer, man, and learning how to use it. I mean, Elon Musk, I think that embodies the Tesla like vibe, the Tesla future,
spirit.
the Tesla spirit. Exactly, man. And to see your experience, you're building your own computer, you got your own 3D printer now, you're just drinking the Red Bulls and, I'm saying, like that Tesla vibe. No, it's just that there's that pioneering sort of spirit behind it. And it's exciting, and when I see someone like you, I don't know if you relate to like the average fella, but I do. I relate to the average fella.
Yeah.
And these small things like building your own computer, it might not seem that interesting to everybody, but at the end of the day, the future depends on people who have these skills. And I mean, you can learn how to, bake a cake all you want, but the future is not going to depend on baking cakes. That's all I got to say. Anyway, so I want to talk to you. Last bit of advice. We were talking about the average fellas, and it's important for me. This podcast it's doing more for the listeners, doing more for me than Tony. I mean, awesome. Hearing you talk about building your computer, working at Tesla, like these electronics is my niche. Growing up, my dad would always be like, don't be dumb. Don't do what I do. Do something else. And I always thought that computers, I always had this thing where, if you knew how to use a computer, if you could make money with a computer, then you were a step above. You were a step into the future. And, even just building your computer, becoming that familiar with the hardware, with the software, what it takes to actually compute stuff and build a function. It's like a car, it's building a car. There's plenty of mechanics out there that know how to build cars today. But they don't know how to build computers. And it's very you can actually that skill from building a car, being a mechanic, can translate to building a computer very simple, very quickly, very quickly. Yeah. So I guess like the gate to entry, I don't know how you say it. The bar to entry. Oh my God, my puppy's running around out here.
Gateway.
Yeah, the gateway to entry it's kind of low. It's low for people, but it's just exposing people to the concept of building their own computer, getting familiar with electronic components. I don't know how many times I talk about, hard drives with people, and, we talk about your mom. My mom is, when it comes to technology, even her phone, clueless. She'll still call me up to this day. Hey, Zach, can you show me how to print? I need to download this for my email. And I'm like, oh Lord.
Oh no. Oh no.
I mean, have you dealt with that though?
Yeah. Yeah. Just recently, actually, I was trying to help my mom buy tickets on her phone while I was on the phone with her.
Oh Lord.
And she was able to figure it out, but we were on the phone for like 45 minutes.
Yeah. It's a different world now. It's different.
Yeah.
It's not the same. So our parents, that skill, learning the computer, it's a little late for them. It's a little late in the game.
Yeah. The first 30, 40 years of their lives, computers weren't a thing.
Weren't a thing. And then like how old were you when computers became like valuable? Because for me, I was like maybe 12, 13 years old when computers came on the radar. Like, you need to get on the internet today, like.
I think I was 10 when we got a family PC.
Wow. A family PC.
And we didn't even have internet when we got it.
It was just for book reports.
Yeah, it was just for like typing stuff.
Trash. I remember those days, man. I remember them.
Type and print. That's it.
We had a Hewitt Packard. Is that what it's called? An HP?
Yeah.
It was an HP Home Edition, and I mean, it had like the matching keyboard, the matching tower, the matching monitor, and everything. It was cute, and it had the little like 2 speakers and everything. With
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, anyways, like I said, I guess my last question would be, I'm over here like just flapping at the gums over here. What advice would you say to the average fellow listening who thinks that they need to be the Elon Musk to build the next computer or to build their own computer?
I would say YouTube, baby. That's all you need to do. Just look up videos, use Google, just understand all the components, and you'll be a lot more confident in how to build a computer. There's plenty of resources out there.
Awesome. Speaking of those resources, can you just like maybe just name a few, just throw some websites out there for the listeners right now?
Like I said, PC Part Picker when you're building. YouTube, there's a few YouTubers out there that are all about building computers and tech like that, like Linus or Lionel Tech Tip, I think's one of them. And I don't know any other ones off the top of my head.
Awesome. Hey, well, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much for, I mean, just providing the information that you did today. I mean, although it's a little different interview, I feel like today's interview was very valuable to me because I'm trying to build my own computer,
I feel you.
Any shout outs or anybody you want to shout before we sign off today?
Shout out to you, man. Thanks for doing the podcast. I like listening to it. I'm a huge fan. Glad I can actually be on, man. It's an honor.
Dude, thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, check me out on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/tonx88. tonx8.
There you have it, ladies and
All
gentlemen.
right.
Hey, so I just want to say thank you guys for listening tonight, or thank you for listening this morning, the Average Fellas Podcast. Once again, guys, subscribe, rate, review, all those good things. I would really appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts. Please review us on Apple Podcasts. We're trying to get up in the directories, rank up, and it would really benefit us if you guys did that for us. Once again, it'd benefit the people on the show, the nonprofits, the small businesses that need to get their names out in the world. We need to share their story. So once again, leave us a review and rate us and all those good things, guys. Once again, this is the Average Fellas Podcast. Peace and love.